Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Sky U Pod, your Gopher podcast for the College Huddle. Although we're kind of in this off-season, postseason era right now for the Gophers, we just wanted to kind of get a little transfer portal update for the Gophers and preview some of these upcoming college football playoff games. As always, joined by Max, Kurt. How you guys doing? I feel like it's been a little bit since I've been on.
Yeah, doing good. It's good to have you back, Shooty. It's just weird that bowl games have started and the Gophers bowl game is still so far away. Like we're in mid-December and we still got a few weeks here yet before we're playing, which is kind of nice. But it also, um, you don't want to put out the preview episode yet, so we're kind of waiting on that. We will be doing one though. But anyway, doing good, doing good.
Good.
Yeah, doing well. I see you got your Christmas tree up there, Spence.
'Tis the season.
Yeah.
Yeah, that came fast.
It sure did. The holiday season is great because obviously Christmas, New Year's, but also the college football playoff is here. Lots of I think it's really exciting. These matchups are awesome. We'll touch on that in a little bit, but let's go ahead and talk transfer here, the transfer portal. I guess the biggest news, we'll start with kind of the hard hitting news. As you both know, Philip Daniels, our offensive tackle, has entered the portal. Pretty big blow for the Gophers. Uh, Kurt, Max, what are your thoughts on that? Can we reload that position, or is this going to be tough?
Well, it both. I think both is the answer. It sucks because he was your projected starting right tackle, Phil Daniels. He got some starts, but at the end of the year, only a redshirt freshman, so had him for another 3 years. Um, Speaking on him specifically, like sounds like Ohio State was in on him pretty early, maybe before you're legally supposed to be. You know, Tampering just happens. I don't really know how you fully get around it. It's frustrating though. Gopher fans are frustrated because the NIL was there from a Gopher standpoint. It sounds like Ohio State money wise wasn't too far off what we were already giving them. It was a slight increase, but I mean he's from Cincinnati, Ohio. I'm assuming he grew up an Ohio State fan. So if they reach out and tell you about a potential good chance to start all that, and the money's going to be a little bit increased, you're going back home basically or closer to home, tough to fault the kid for doing that. And it's Ohio State. If they want you, you're from there. I don't really fault like the Gophers too much and not being able to retain them in this specific scenario, I guess is what I'm saying with that. So best of luck to him. He hasn't committed there yet. He's taking a visit there. I'm sure he'll be committing there very, very soon. To go off that to like Ohio State background, they've been losing out on a lot of recruiting battles over this offensive line, interior offensive line especially. So to see them be aggressive in the portal isn't a huge surprise. I'm sure Ryan Day and company are feeling the heat in more ways than one right now. So to see them go after a local kid that they passed on initially, got developed by a good program. We got a good offensive line coach in Callahan, and we've sent guys to the NFL a few times now and going to send a few more. So to have them circle back and take them, not a huge shock. But there are a lot of young, talented guys on this team, right? You got Tony Nelson, who's been in the waiting for a while. Beers is back. Greg Johnson, who came out of high school as a tackle. Maybe they look at sliding him back outside, and you get like either Roy or Beers playing center next year. So you got options, and plus you still have Martez Lewis and Luma Nele guy who transferred in this year that didn't play much. The big 6'8" guy from UTEP. So you got options. It's definitely a necessity here, though, to get a tackle in and just someone with experience to push these young guys, because you want to be five fresh young dudes basically on the offensive line. You want some seasoning there.
Yeah, I think this, the loss of Daniels definitely bumps up the offensive tackle position to number one in my book in terms of transfer portal need. And yeah, like Alex Cam just said here, if it's a stream school, you really can't blame them. And
It's Ohio State.
it's
It's a
tough.
top
Yeah,
5 program. Yeah.
yeah, that's tough. But yeah, like you said, if he's from Ohio, I mean, you really can't compete with that. Like you can't change where he's from, right? So
Yeah, it's his. I'm sure it was his childhood school. So that
right.
specific scenario, you can't blame him. I would expect us to be pretty aggressive at offers we throw out in the portal now for offensive line.
Right. Yeah, I think it's got to be. And like the last time we talked last week, Kurt, I mean, I was all in on like cornerback had to be our number one spot, and I'm already back. Like it's offensive tackle now. I mean,
Yeah,
it's one guy, it's one starter, but just because tackle is it's not a position that you can just go and find a starter easily in the
it's not cheap either.
portal. No, it is not.
Yeah,
So when you're essentially losing both of your starting tackles in one off season, um, we're gonna have to go get at least one guy. It doesn't be exactly a starter right away, but just a guy that can provide some depth or you know has some
just some
experience.
playing experience. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Just he can be a leader and help coach up the younger guys too. So that's kind of where I'm at with that. But like you said, we still have a lot of younger guys in the interior offensive line, so it's not the end of the world.
Well, the O line is where a lot of the highest rated recruits on this team are. So that's kind of nice to have. Obviously, it's tough to throw those guys in right away, but
Right. Maybe we'll see him
we
in the
hope they're
bowl
ready.
game. Maybe having this all this time off is going to help.
Well, I did catch today's episode of Pair and Despair with Ryan Burns, Chip Scoggins, Justin Guard. They talked about how Tyler Cooper might actually be out for the bowl game because some offseason surgery, minor surgery to get cleaned up and give him his best chance at trying out for the NFL. So you might see, I don't remember specifically which one they named, but maybe like a Roy or 20. I don't remember which one they said, but might get his actual first start there. Give him a look at left guard just to see what the future holds. So that's kind of the fun part of bowl games now. Like it used to be, go back 15 years, you're hoping to get in the best bowl possible and it'd be best on best. But now with all the opt outs and, it more being treated as PJ says a reward for the players. I kind of like it when the young guys get a shot. Not that I'm not thankful, if the older guys want to play, totally get that one last game. We'll gladly take them, but it's kind of fun to get a preview of what the guys that are going to be potential starters are next year get to do.
Right. Yeah. But yes, we'll miss Philip Daniels. Tough loss, but I think ultimately, I'm looking at our portal right now, fellas, and we've lost 9 guys. Daniels probably is the worst loss. I think that I would go, frankly, Newbin, I guess, the next big loss personally. Although it's not really a big loss considering our running back room, just from an experience standpoint.
Yeah.
Maybe Kristen Hoskins, the wide receiver as well. He's probably up there.
That one hurts for me because that's another receiver I was excited about that unfortunately just couldn't make it work out. Minnesota native too, so that would have been nice. It's
Yeah.
another guy that I feel like PJ's talked about, like really good athlete, got some natural ability out there, receiver, but for whatever reason, we just don't put it all together and make it click on the field. So I'm still hoping for one more receiver, but
Yeah.
we'll be okay.
Uh, right. I know that you guys touched on the last episode when I wasn't there. Fortunately, the incoming transfers, it's 10. We have 10 so far that are incoming compared to the 9 that we're losing. I think regardless, you want to have more guys coming in than you're losing, just to keep, your players up. Obviously, we know what can happen in the spring, so kind of hold our breath for a little bit longer until we hit next season in the summer. But who do you guys think is a really good incoming transfer as of right now?
Go ahead, Max.
Yeah, kind of like we talked about last time. At before last episode, there was a few guys that hadn't committed yet, and I think the top guy that we talked about was running back out of Michigan, Cole Cabana. So now that we've had a few more guys and kind of look on the defensive side, we do have 2 defensive linemen in Stephen Curtis and Rashawn Lawrence. Um, both come from the FCS level which Stony Brook is FCS, right? They're not like NAIA or something. I honestly don't even know.
I think it
But
is, but I'm just
yeah, two
that's
guys
just something.
not from the FBS, I should say.
Yeah,
But nice that Curtis has 2 years of eligibility left. And then Lawrence, the kid from Stony Brook, watching just some of his highlights and reading up a little bit on him. He's a guy that can literally play nose tackle, 3 technique, and defensive end on the left and right side. So you kind
I
of get
think
multiple players in one with
yeah.
him, which is nice.
I was gonna add, and I think he's probably like the most prized one that we've gotten committed so far. He had a lot
Yeah.
of people interested. He had offers from I think Georgia Tech, Oklahoma was in on him. His final 2 were us in Oklahoma. We won him. Rutgers wanted him as well. So to win over those schools, I mean, those are your peers. Georgia Tech, Oklahoma now. Not all the time. I'm sure Oklahoma fans don't appreciate that, but um, this year for sure. But to win out over those schools, I mean, that's what you want to do, and that's probably I don't know how much NIL money he got, but I'm sure it helped Dinkytown athletes being where it is to be able to be competitive with those schools. So and to win out, that's great because now your defensive front was already looking like, or you're hoping that's going to be one of the strengths of your team next year, and now you bring in a potential. If not starter, like a guy that's going to be rotated in a lot, I would imagine on the interior. But yeah, and then like you said, Max, also getting uh, what's 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 the other
Stephen
Stephen
Curtis.
Curtis, yeah, the D end from Illinois State, giving you depth there as well to go with Jackson Howard, Anthony Smith. You got a lot of options there as well. For me personally, though, I've kind of hinted at it. My favorite one is the receiver um, out of Miami of Ohio, Javon Tracy. Uh, Listen, this guy, he's got 57 catches, 818 yards, and 7 touchdowns last year out of the MAC. I think he was a first team all freshman MAC player as well the year prior, I believe, is what he had also. But looking at his stat line, the thing that got me the most excited, folks, he had a lot of big plays, a lot of explosive plays. He had 5 catches, at least 5 catches over 30 yards, including a 72-yard touchdown reception. So another guy that had a lot of offers out of the portal: Oklahoma State, Utah, Virginia Tech, Cal, Kansas. A lot of others wanted him. So he's a 6-foot guy. So I'm guessing he's a slot. So him and Driver probably working out of the slot. You got Lemecki and Tyler Williams and Lanier right now on the outside. I would love to pick up the Nebraska receiver as well that visited. He's 6'5" and more of an outside deep threat as well. So just adding explosive playmakers to this offense is going to be helpful. So you're not so much of a dink and dunk team, but yeah, he's the one. Javon Tracy. Also, I already forgot. Was it brother or cousin of the Giants running back right now that's going off? He's related. I think it's the little brother. I think it's the younger brother of him. But anyway, really good player, solid pickup. Hopefully we can hang on to him now because the portal's still open for about another week or so.
Right. Yeah, I would agree with you, Kurt. I'm kind of interested too in the transfer out of Purdue, Drew Bieber. Um, Big guy, 6'5", 245. I think that, if we involve the tight ends as much as we do, I think this past year had a little more involvement than we had in years past. It just adds another element to our game. And, blocking is obviously going to be huge too. But if you can be two-dimensional in the tight end position, maybe he'll show something special. But I totally agree with you, Kurt. I think that Tracy is an exciting guy. Um, but yeah, with everything that we've seen, Coach chiming in here
Yeah,
wants Malik as
he's the
well.
Nebraska receiver.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's 6'5". Yeah, coach says we need a taller receiver to go up and get it in the end zone.
yeah,
Malachi would be that guy, 6'5", kind of a one cut type dude. Just let him go get it. Really athletic guy. He's visited here and kind of been teasing, so I don't know. Maybe he's just trying to gauge more interest or whatnot. But yeah, it'd be a great pickup if we got him.
yeah.
And with Tracy and Tracy stays, I'd be pretty happy with that receiver room, assuming no one else leaves. I'm sure some will trickle off here in spring, but really hoping Tyler Williams could stay. He's a 5-star guy, so you got
Hmm.
him, Malachi, and Lanier is like the outside type guys, and Lemecki. Lemecki's played slot and outside, so really you could have 6 bodies you're feeling pretty good about with everyone stays and you pick them up, but we'll see.
Yeah. I guess lastly with the portal, I know you both touched on it as well last week, but what do we need right now? Curry, what do you think we need? And is there a guy
Yeah,
that's out there that you think that we should go
I
for
got, I got
with
all
a
the answers.
realistic chance?
I got all the answers. Okay. So we'll start with the needs because you need the offensive lineman. All right. So you got Andrew Gentry, tackle from Michigan. He's 6'7", 327 pounds. He suffered an injury in his first year there. He's got 2 years of eligibility remaining. He's currently ranked as the 15th offensive tackle in the portal. Listen, he was a 4-star recruit out of high school. Why he went to Michigan, and was known as an excellent run blocker, but needed to develop a little bit better pass protection. I feel like that's our tackles for the most part in general. So if you can get a guy that's a great run blocker, it's something that we didn't excel at last year. Get him working with Callahan. I mean, the sales pitch is pretty easy. You're bringing him in to compete. He's competing with a lot of younger guys, and so any experience that he does have is gonna, work in his advantage here. There goes my light. But anyway, so Andrew Gentry out of Michigan would be the tackle I want to bring in. Then you also got Marcellus Marshall, who has been, I think he's visiting today. He's the guard out of UCF. But the thing about him is he's 6'5", 310. He's got a year left. He's got multiple starts at tackle and guard. He's played 4 of the 5 spots, started at 4 of the 5 spots along the offensive line. So he's only got a year left, but to bring in someone like that can give you that versatility at that position, that's obviously got huge upside. So with the needs, I'm starting there. Those are the guys I'm looking at on the offensive line. We had a tackle from Baylor come and visit. I believe he has committed to Houston. So that's looking like that one is done. But those are the 2 guys around the offensive line. I'd love to get them both, but those 2 would be the needs that I would look for.
Yeah, hard to disagree with offensive line. I still think we need to find another guy at corner. I know we picked up Jalen Bowden out of NC Central. Don't really know much about him. He's not very big. He's only like 6'2". Well, he's tall, but he's only like 155 pounds.
Great.
Yeah.
Lanky, lockdown type corner, but how can
Oh,
You cut
oh,
out but
sorry,
for us,
Max.
Max.
Yeah,
did I
Yeah.
cut out? Oh, my
Yeah,
bad.
you're
it's all
back
right.
now, but you did cut out.
My
It's all
bad.
good.
Yeah, no, I was
Yeah, he's still cutting out.
just saying I think we need to.
Well, we'll get
Well,
back to Max here once he's back.
Co
Yeah,
says one receiver, 2 line, 1 linebacker, 2 corners needed. That's
yeah,
not a bad wish list. I think getting the 1 corner that we have, I'm okay. I'm bullish on the corners, I guess. I think 1 more corner would be great and ideal, but in a day and age when the Gophers aren't at the top dog in NIL, I'm okay with bringing in the 1 starter and having one of the young guys prove it. You brought in 2 freshmen in this current class that you really like. They're really high on the guys there in Zaquan Bryan and Ryan Kelly. So, but yeah, another guy with experience would definitely be helpful. So I agree. 1 more
yeah,
corner. We do have a current commit. So, and I'm all in with him on wanting another linebacker.
yeah,
Same podcast today. Ryan Burns says he doesn't anticipate Cody Lindenberg back. So for me, if you get an offensive tackle, my next need becomes linebacker, and I want an athletic freak. I just want somebody that brings something a little bit different to that position. I talked about it on the last pod. I wrote down some names for this as well. So you had Gabe Powers from Ohio State. He took a visit. He has not committed yet. He's got 3 years left. He's 6'4", 242. Played a lot of special teams, got rotated in late in games and for them, but 4-star guy, so was highly recruited out of high school. I think that's the perfect type of guy you could go out and get from one of the bigger schools. Here's a little bit more of maybe a wishful thinking. You got Jacob Manow from Arizona, Hawaiian guy, 5'11", but 230. So just a bowling ball of a man. Really good player, though. Was 2023 first team All Pac 12 defense. He's got over 100 tackles, 7 sacks in his career. He's got 1 year of eligibility left. Has got multiple pass breakup as well. So he's a well rounded defender. That's a guy I'm sure has got a lot of interest out there, but I think that would be perfect if they like their young guys to go out and get him and basically like, hey, our top middle linebacker just left. Do you want to be the starter here? So that's another guy I like. Here's also this is also into a little bit of a reach. Might take some development, but I might be butchering the pronunciation. Darian Gullett out of Texas. 6'3", 230, would have 3 years remaining. He's a former top 85 recruit in the class of 2023. Just really explosive athlete. Was a really good shot put out of high school as well. But he's another guy, athletic freak. I want athletic freaks on this defense. And that's another guy. Doesn't have a lot of playing experience. So he's a little bit of the, risk reward option, but when you're taking the risk with that much athleticism, I'm okay with that. And 6'3", 230, and you're that fast and explosive, yeah, just tell him where to go. Even if he's just going to blitz up the gut all the time, I think it'd be worth taking a flyer on him.
Yeah. Max, we got you back now. Go ahead and finish your thought.
Yeah, no, I don't know what's going on with my Wi-Fi here. Apologize, fellas.
You're
Yeah,
good.
I think Kurt pretty much said exactly what I was talking about too with Gabe Powers out of Ohio State. Just seeing that he took a visit was huge. Like you said, 4-star guy out of Ohio. Um, Still would have 3 years of eligibility left. Seemed like more. I mean, he's a bigger kid, but seemed like they talked about him more as like an outside linebacker type too. That he's pretty fast and athletic.
Which
So
is
I think that'd
exactly
be one
what
of
we
your
would
athletic
want.
freaks, Kurt. Be Gabe Powers.
That's right.
Yeah. It's nice too that we're sitting here after, if we think back to last postseason, to be sitting here and not once talking about the safety position.
Yeah. No, I mean, and from the sounds of it, all those guys are coming back. And
Feels
Max, if I'm talking over you, I apologize. It's just because you're
right.
cutting out again. But Coleman Bryson even announced he's back. Darius Green says he's re-upped with Dinkytown athletes, and on top of Coy, Kerry Brown. Yeah, and I'm missing Aiden Gooseby, but he also announces back. So to have all those guys back, yeah, safety, you're sitting pretty set. You know what's funny, Spencer? I'll get your thoughts on this. We actually brought in a replacement, or not a replacement, but a quarterback, and we didn't even talk about him as far as impact transfer guys. And he's got starting experience. What are your
Right.
thoughts on the Georgia Tech transfer,
Yeah, I think that this, like I
Zach
said, when I made
Quinn?
this controversial, I don't know if it's controversial, but when I mentioned that maybe getting a quarterback would be good for the Gophers, it's really just for the competition, you know, that could be brought to that quarterback room. Um, we all know that. Why am I why am I forgetting his name?
The new one or the
Yeah,
one that's
no,
supposed
the
to be
one
starting?
that's gonna, who's been here.
Drake Lindsey's been
Yeah,
here.
it is Drake Lindsey. He's anticipated to start, and from what we've seen, because he got a little bit of playing time in during this year, he seems to be the guy, and they think that he is going to be the guy. A lot of good things that we've heard about him, but it's always good to have someone else in the back pocket, especially one with some starting experience. We saw what Brosmer can do. Georgia Tech this year, decent football team. We know that they usually run the football, so who knows how, he'll do in a different kind of offensive set. We do run the football a lot here too, but I don't know if it's like a Georgia Tech style, but Um, I just think that it's good for the quarterback room.
Yeah.
And again, like if Lindsey just kind of sputters, which I'm hoping he doesn't, and I don't think he will, it's just good to have someone else back there.
Somebody that's actually been a multi-game starter in a Power Five conference game, you know. So he's got a few stats on this year. He didn't play a ton this year, but he's 35 for 65, 409 yards, 2 touchdowns, 3 picks. But he can run the ball a little bit. So against Notre Dame, he ran it 13 times for 45 yards. He did start for them against Notre Dame. So um, let's see. Dave chimes in here. I can see Georgia Tech quarterback being used for Wildcat. Yeah, that's something I was going to add. Is he is somebody that brings a little bit of a different dynamic that Lindsey doesn't. He is a little bit more mobile. He's not like super athletic, so I don't know. I'm sure he will be. I think you're right. I think he will be brought in as a Wildcat quarterback, regardless if he, assuming he doesn't win the starting job. But I'm not sure. Let me put it this way: if the second running back, if RB2 is faster than him, which I'm sure he is, I'd rather run that wildcat option, to be honest, than bring in like a slightly more mobile quarterback. Now, goal line situations, I think it can make a little bit more sense, just because, well, outside the 5 at least, because then you still have an option that's a viable passer back there. So it definitely helps, and I'm sure they'll have packages for him regardless. But he's not like he's not, you know trying to think of another just pure runner that's in the portal. He's not the Michigan. He's not Alex Orgy, who's like just a power runner. He's not going to be like that
Yeah,
guy.
that's a great comparison. Yeah,
Yeah, I like him.
yeah. Um, well, yeah, fellas, any other thoughts about the transfer portal before we dive into these college football playoff matchups?
I did want to bring up one more guy and get your guys' thoughts.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people are excited about let me get his name here really quick. AJ Turner, the running back with 2 years of eligibility out of Marshall. Had a pretty solid year. What were your guys' thoughts on him? Because he's more of a scat back, like so a speedster, if you will. And I'm not against getting those types of running backs. I just don't feel like we've seen them really used well in PJ's offenses.
Yeah.
We haven't had a good. It's been pretty much like power running backs do better here. We haven't
Yeah.
used speedy, shifty guys that well. Two was it just last season we had the two guys from Western Michigan,
That's
then
what
the
I was
running
gonna
back
say.
came in
Sean
as the
Tyler.
Sean Tyler, thank you.
Yeah.
And we just ran him between the tackles the whole time. We didn't
Yeah.
even really use his skill set, so I'm hoping that that's something that we've adjusted to
Yeah.
taking on this guy, but we'll see. And so I'm not doubting the player as much I hope we utilize him better than we have, you know, receiving backs, scat backs than we have in the past
Yeah.
with that player type.
I mean, hopefully the trend continues. We saw the offense evolve a little bit to involve the running backs a lot more in the past game. So hopefully that's
That's
what they have
true.
in mind for them. But
Yeah. I think that I like him. I he's a shifty back, 6 feet, 195 pounds. So yeah, he definitely is kind of portraying that Sean Tyler kind of guy. What I felt bad about Tyler was he was shifty and athletic, probably like you know Turner is, but Tyler had those fumbling problems,
Yeah,
if you
that
remember.
was also an
And I
issue.
think that they just had enough, and so. I think that so long as he doesn't fumble the ball, he has a chance of being, helping out Darius Taylor. We know Darius Taylor's probably going to go down for injury for a little bit or during a game, so we'll need some running backs that can kind of pick up that load. But I agree with you, Kurt. 6 feet, 195. I don't know if he's going to be that between the tackles kind of guy, but if Harbaugh can sort of utilize him to his skill set, maybe he can do something special. I mean, he had 104 carries for 864 yards,
Yeah, he had a
averaging
great yards per carry.
8.3 yards per carry. That's pretty dang good. 6 touchdowns. I mean, Yeah, I mean, I'll add him any day. We'll just have to see how he's utilized here.
Agreed.
Awesome. Well, fellas, let's transition here. The college football playoff, the first expanded edition here. All of you listeners, you've heard our kind of takes on this and everything, but I don't really care what anybody says. I think these matchups are pretty dang awesome. And I do think that they got this right. I wasn't on here to share my opinion, but I do think that they got the college football playoff right. Um, yeah, is what it is. Deal with it, Bama.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so let's just kind of go game by game and just from the first game that's going to be played on to the last game that's going to be played on Saturday night. We'll start Friday here. Notre Dame is home against Indiana. Again, I think that's an awesome matchup. I think
Yeah.
Indiana's probably rocking right now. I think, like the state of Indiana. I mean, I don't know their history, but I'm sure that there's some sort of rivalry or something that's there between the two schools. Um, Man, late December game at Notre Dame. Hopefully,
In-state rivalry. I mean,
yeah,
that's
it
sweet.
doesn't get much better than that. It's college football playoff at home. I mean, that is what this is about, I think, fellas. You get a chance at home to represent the college football playoff. I mean, campus would be exciting.
I think I'm more excited for these first round games than I am for like the rest of the playoffs, just because they
Really?
are on campus and they're just
Yeah.
such a unique matchup that you don't get to see every day,
Bef- before
every
we
year.
before we kind of tackle these games, fellas, I do have a question. Obviously, students around this time, every campus is different, but usually finals are over,
Yeah.
kids might be going home, blah blah blah. Do you think that's going to have an effect on who's at the game? I don't think attendance in general will be affected, obviously, because it's the college football playoff, especially at a Notre Dame and these big schools, but I'm talking the student factor. Do you think that will be affected in a way that might not be too good of a thing?
I'm sure there'll be some students that aren't there that would normally be there during the regular season, but I gotta imagine there's also enough of the students that live near the area that are still gonna go to the game. I mean, you're in the
Yeah.
college football playoffs. It's the first year it's happening. For a lot of these schools, it's a big deal, right? I mean, Notre
Yeah.
Dame, I know they've been in before, but it wasn't a given that they were going to get in this year with the trip up to Northern Illinois. Then Indiana's in the same state, so like I don't know, like you might be getting like students from both sides into that one. I know the tickets for that one are pretty expensive though, so the students might not have the change for that. But yeah, I a little bit. I get what you're saying, but I think overall the home atmosphere, it's still gonna be so much better than what you get at like the bowl games, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a way better environment than anything else you get. So I'm excited for it.
Yeah, I mean, especially too. I mean, even the kids that stayed or stuck around and live in the area, there's nothing else they have to really worry about, right? So they're going to be tailgating for days on end, and if they
Yeah, that's a good
win,
point.
it's the party's going to
Right.
continue, right? So
Amen to that. Yeah, I agree with both of you. I think that it won't make a huge difference because I know if we had a game on campus, doesn't matter what time of year it is, a college football playoff game, I'm going to be there. Um, so have fun, students. It's going to be a blast. But anyway, Indiana's at Notre Dame, December 20th, 7 p.m. on ABC/ESPN. Notre Dame is 7-point favorite. I'm going to go ahead and give my prediction first. I think it's Notre Dame. I love this Indiana team. They're fun to watch this year. They got a great coach, great players, but this Notre Dame defense, I don't know what happened after that loss against Northern Illinois. They have just been on a tear. Typically, in these situations during the playoff, Notre Dame kind of fizzles a little bit. History says it does, but the game is at home. Um, you're going to be fired up. I just think that they'll be able to cover those 7 points. So give me Notre Dame.
Well, I'm going to take Indiana to cover, and I think it's going to be a really close game. I agree, though. My ultimate factor in picking Notre Dame to win is that great defense, and the last time we saw Indiana go up against a more quality opponent in Ohio State, that O line just got destroyed. So I got to imagine Notre Dame is going to basically come out with the same game plan that Ohio State had for them, which was just come at them aggressively because Indiana never really adjusted and take your chances, guarding those athletic receivers down the field. They do have the guys on the outside to make plays, though. So I do think Indiana's going to be in it down to the wire. But I agree. I think Notre Dame at home gets it done. I really hope Indiana pulls off the upset, but I do think the Irish win. But I am going to take Indiana to cover. And I don't know the over under, but this game just feels like the under to me. But we'll see.
Yeah, very well could be. I agree. I want Indiana to pull off the upset too, but I think I'm just going to take the Irish. Just thinking, like you said, with how good their defense has been, and we have already seen Indiana against a pretty quality opponent in Ohio State, and kind of get their butts handed to them a little bit. I also just want to factor in like Notre Dame is probably a much better team on the ground, and just factoring in the cold. I mean, there's a chance for snow on Saturday in South Bend, so I'm going to take the Irish with the elements and just being able to control the ball on the ground. So yeah, that's really it for the breakdown.
Yeah, I do think Notre Dame, if they think they have an easy game, just because it's like Indiana, I think they're for a huge mistake though,
Right.
because that
Like
that
an NI,
defense,
yeah,
well, but I mean tenfold for Indiana. I think
right.
Indiana's way better than Northern Illinois, obviously. Like that Indiana defense is legit as well. They have one of the best D linemen in college football this year, and I
Hmm.
forget his name, but he's anyway. So they can't just you know it's not a gimme that they got to be at home at Indiana or against Indiana to start the playoffs. Dave says the only matchup I felt that the playoff committee got wrong. They had a chance to have SMU go against Texas. It would have been legendary. Old SWs, yeah, old Southwest Conference teams. That would have been a really cool matchup. I think if you're going to nitpick, you could have messed with the seeding of teams. Texas never beat anyone all year. They lost to Georgia
Yeah.
twice, and they still got the 5 seed. But I agree, Dave. That's a valid point. He also adds, and remember that Texas was the team that squealed on SMU Pony Express years. That is a good point that I didn't remember. That would have been great TV, Dave. There's no arguing that. That would have been great. I do love Clemson at Texas though as well because I think those are two uh, programs that feel very differently right now than like at the start of the year or even just the week before the conference championship game. So
Yeah.
still good matchups, but I get what you're saying. SMU Texas would have been a good one.
Well, let's go to the next game that's going to be played. Penn State on the road. I'm sorry, SMU on the road at Penn State. This is on Saturday, the 21st at 11 a.m. on TNT
So
slash
they still
Max.
got a noon kickoff, but it is a whiteout, I believe. I think they're still doing a whiteout.
That's gonna be an also a very sick environment, and for that reason. But before I give you my take on this, Penn State, and I'm not throwing shade on a Boise or SMU, but I think that they have a really solid shot at making the semifinals pretty
Oh
easily
yeah.
because of the matchups. Again, I'm not throwing shade on SMU and Boise. I just think Penn State is a better team. And looking
Yeah.
at the other matchups across the college football playoff, this is the easiest path to make it. That semifinal will probably be a little tough, but even so, it's easier than the other side of the bracket. So,
Yeah.
um,
Quick note on that. I think an easy way going forward, and I'm not the only one with this idea, is just after round one you do a reseeding, right? So like Oregon wouldn't necessarily have to play the winner of Alabama, the winner of Tennessee and Ohio State. Like they could get pushed. Yeah, if SMU pulls off the upset, SMU might get pushed to
yeah.
Oregon type thing. Um,
Do do
but
they do that based on the game they just played?
Yeah, well, a little bit, right? I think you take into the whole season, and then
Yeah,
like if they beat Penn State, who's what, 6? Like
yeah,
I think then I think you just don't want the bracket locked in. But I don't think
yeah,
it's always going to be as bad as it was. Like me and Max talked about last week. Like, where were you supposed to fit all these teams that had 2 losses that
yeah.
dropped games you weren't really expecting them to? I forget whose Tennessee's first loss was to. Whether was it Kentucky or
Kentucky,
I think Arkansas.
Arkansas,
Arkansas.
who wasn't a great team, and then Ohio State dropping the rivalry game to Michigan. And so it was looking like it was going to work
Yeah,
itself out, and then it just kind of, college football
yeah,
happened, which is great. So, and
yeah.
props to Oregon for being one of the only teams that hasn't complained about how this whole thing is seeded. They're just
Just
winning.
win your
So
games.
that's right.
Yeah. My only pushback on that, Kurt, is not that it's not a, you know, it's not a bad idea. I just feel like what will the committee do with that though? What are the TV ratings going to be like? Oh, you know what? Maybe right now we'll make it so that these teams are here and here, but once we get pushed through the bracket, we'll push them further apart to make the eventual penultimate matchup
Well,
between these two teams. It'll be glorious. SEC championship round 2, yada, yada, yada. It's just another thing that adds to that, you know, BS to
well,
me.
there won't be a bracket in place of seeing like the potential matchup, right? Like you just have your top 4 teams get the bye, which I like the conference champ bye rule. I know that's a minority take
I think, yeah,
right
it
now.
makes the regular season, you know, not that it's not relevant, but you play hard to potentially get that buy. Like it's,
I think it
you
just
know,
creates way more fun matchups
yeah,
than because if they didn't do that, then you just take the top 2 Big Ten teams and top 2 SEC teams.
yeah,
Sometimes probably they'd put the top 3 SEC teams and just give them a bye. And so you'd have
yeah,
4 teams, you'd have 3 SEC teams or 2 Big Ten teams and 2 SEC teams already on to the 8. And it's just like, make them play. You didn't win the
yeah,
conference. Your punishment should be you have to go play, in my
yeah.
opinion.
I
But
agree. I'm sorry to keep, pushing off our
yeah,
predictions,
no,
but
you're good.
one more thing, I do think though that those conference champions that do get the bye, I would like to see them have a game at home as well, just for another
Oh, yeah, that'd be
reward
great.
for, winning your conference. You also get a game at home. I know that there's money with all these bowl games, but
Well,
I
yeah, I
feel
mean,
like
at a
we just
certain point,
gotta, yeah,
you're running out of games though at that point too, because these you want to keep these bowl games important, right? So they're getting
right,
mixed into these playoff games, which I
right,
like. And so to me, I think the reward is probably better that you get the bye. So,
sure.
um, but
So you wouldn't have like
I mean, in
the
a perfect
second
world,
round,
I'm with
second
you.
round home games as well. You
I
would
think it would
just
be
keep,
better football. I agree
yeah,
with you there, and it's definitely a bigger advantage to those top seeds. But
right,
if you're going to keep the tradition of bowls somewhat alive as
yeah,
well, I think they kind of have to do it this way.
right. Good point.
Then you're
Um,
gonna have 8-win Big Ten teams in New Year's 6 or something.
Right, right.
right. All right. Well, sorry for that segue, but anyway, let's talk about SMU at Penn State. It's a whiteout ACC against the Big Ten. Penn State's 8.5 point favorite. I think I'm going to go Penn State with this one, fellas. It's a big spread, but this Penn State team, I feel like they just got to forget kind of what happened during the regular season, reset, and just play football week after week. And I think that this opportunity here against SMU, you've played a lot of teams that are better than SMU this year. You know that you can do it. I think that they do it at home. Give me Penn State and the points.
Again, I'm taking SMU. I think they have a pretty good offense that's going to keep them in games. I know they were kind of out of sync that first half against Clemson, but then you saw what happened in the second half when they got things rolling. And I know Oregon's Oregon, but I'm having a tough time getting that game for Penn State's defense out of my head. So I think SMU will be able to score enough points. Again, I think Penn State does get the victory at home, but I am going to take SMU to cover that. Would you say 8.5? I'm going to take
8.5
SMU.
as of now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you, Kurt. I'm going to take SMU, just getting the full touchdown plus. Yeah, I mean, not that Penn State's not that Penn State is bad, but this yeah, their offense at times is been Oregon, but I think SMU's defense has been a little bit underrated too. So
Yeah.
Sure. Awesome. There you have it. I'm going to just go in order of the game times. I'm glad they're spreading these out. Obviously, you have to do that, right? But the next game after, also on TNT/Max, Clemson is at Texas at 3 o'clock on Saturday. Texas is a 12-point favorite. I think that this matchup to me is the most interesting. And
Yeah.
Kurt, you said it, like kind of like an interesting kind of year for them, these two teams, especially Clemson. Wow, it's crazy that they made it. But regardless, I think that Clemson does cover this spread. I do. Um,
I thought you were going to
I
steal
know
my
that
hot take.
I know that Texas is formidable, but I just have this feeling about Clemson
I
where
do too.
it's
I'm
just
taking
going to
Clemson
be
to win
like
the game. I'm taking
they
Clemson
might.
to beat Texas. I I I feel zero. I don't follow a ton of Texas Longhorn people on Twitter, but I was watching gosh, what show was it? Yeah, there was some clip on going around on X today, and it was a beat writer for Texas talking about like the tickets aren't selling. Texas Clemson, I think outside of Penn State, is the cheapest playoff game to get into, and the tickets aren't moving like expected. And it sounds like the fans are just kind of down still from the SEC championship game. And I just feel like the two feels of these teams where Clemson wins, gets in, is happy to just have life. They're kind of playing with house money right now.
Right.
I have serious questions about Texas's offense. Now, if Clemson can't stop the run, it won't matter. Texas will just be able to run the football and not have to rely on Quinn Ewers making timely key throws. But if Clemson's defense can be legit and come out strong, and if Clemson's offense can just do enough, I'm going to take Clemson to pull off the upset and get the job done.
yeah, I mean, it'd be exciting to see. I don't know that they can get it done, but I do think I would take Clemson to cover the 12 points. It just seems like way too much for a playoff game.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Awesome. Last game, returning to the Big Ten here, Saturday at 7 p.m. Tennessee is on the road at Ohio State. Ohio State is a 7.5 point favorite. Give me the Buckeyes. I just think that Tennessee at this environment, their offense is good, but I just think that if Ohio State can get over the drama of their last loss and just reset and say, look,
That's the thing,
let's
though.
win this championship. Let's get this championship, take over. And they arguably have the best assembled team in the country, right? They arguably have the best assembled team. They just haven't put together. I think if they can play their best football on both sides of the ball, they could win the national championship. Now's the time to do it. Give me the Buckeyes.
Well, I'm definitely taking Tennessee to cover that spread. And I would not be shocked at all if Tennessee wins. I feel like there's so much negativity right now around that program. Like I don't know how it doesn't seep it. Like whether it's just outside noise or not, it's definitely there, and the players can definitely feel it. And Tennessee's all excited to be in this game, and I feel like Ohio State fans are still calling for Ryan
Bitter.
Day's head to be
Yeah.
have him gone because he lost to Michigan, and it's just like I don't know. So there's obviously more pressure on Ryan Day in this game. I 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, whatever, before the Michigan game, I would have said you're crazy that Ryan Day gets fired after this year, even though they lost to Oregon and didn't make the national or lost to Oregon and might not make the Big Ten championship game depending on what happened. And now, just with how angry they are and how down they are, I think he is gone. As soon as, even if they
Yeah.
win this game and lose the next game, I think he's done. I really do. That's the vibe I'm getting from all of their people on the internet. I know the internet's not always the most real source of information, but he's losing. He's losing recruiting battles right now to offensive linemen and whatnot. So maybe I'm just bitter over our guy basically going there. I don't know, but I think Tennessee might win with all the noise, and Ryan Day's just got to cut it loose like he did that game against Georgia when they
Yeah.
almost beat Georgia. You just got to let his players go out and play. You have so much talent at receiver. I think the quarterback's still a good player. Howard, I think he's a really good player. Not the best they've had under him, but I still think he's good enough to sling it around. Will he let him open it up, or will he play all safe and kind of scared, which is kind of what Ohio State's done in big moments this year. So, yeah, I'm going to take Tennessee to cover.
I think I'm going to take Ohio State. I
All
think
right. I hope Ohio State
I
wins,
hear
but
you. I hear you. But I also think if we eliminate, and obviously it's going to play a factor, right? Like the noise does matter, and you know, outside factors. You just look at the two teams. I just feel like if Ohio State plays their best game, Tennessee just feels like a team that they can out physical, and especially being at home, being in a colder environment, bringing Tennessee up north a little bit. I don't know.
see,
And plus,
I
Tennessee's
think
offense is just
that's
very
a great point.
questionable. Like, can they
That
even score?
exactly, yeah.
So maybe Ohio State can play conservative and still win by double digits.
But if imagine the first drive and there's just a bad snap or something and Tennessee falls on it, I feel like all of a
Yeah.
sudden you're gonna feel the whole stadium just feel like, oh my gosh, the wheels have fallen off already again, and that's over. But no, I hope I'm wrong. From what Tennessee fans, they're they think they're like the cream of the crop down there, even though they haven't done crap since Peyton Manning. But
Right.
um,
That's the other thing too. Ohio State's been in the playoffs.
yeah, it's a good point.
They've been in kind of at this level. I
Yeah,
don't know.
yeah, it's a fair point.
Yeah. It's crazy. This is the price you pay as a blue blood team. If you lose one, two games, you might be out as head coach, even if you sprinkle a potential national championship every so often in there. It's great to be awesome, but it's also pretty stressful if you lose one game. Go Gophers. No, but
Yeah,
yeah. Awesome
I'm
matchups.
I'm literally checking Twitter right now because of how fast everything changes with the portal. But
Sure.
because we did have that lineman visiting today, so as of Tuesday evening, there are no more commits at this time. But I'm expecting offensive line to get hit pretty hard here by the Gophers as far as offers getting thrown out. And
Me too.
one thing I just wanted to throw out there that I forgot to is these teams that are in the playoffs, I'm sure there's going to be more guys that jump in the portal as well from these teams, right? Once their season ends this
Yeah.
Saturday, you're going to have four more teams. Is my math right? Yeah, there's four games. So yeah, four more teams that season end, and might have guys in the portal that didn't jump yet. So there might be more players available than appears, but got to move fast when they're there.
Yep. Well, fellas, great discussion.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, we'll kind of see, as these college football games come on, we'll see if we'll do like another transfer portal preview the next college football playoff games. Um, Obviously we'll talk about the game against Virginia Tech for the Duke's Mayo Bowl. That isn't until January 3rd, I believe. So we got a little ways away until Duke's Mayo Bowl, but can't wait for it. Um, But as always, everyone, thanks for listening to another episode of Sky U Pod. Be sure to check us out on YouTube, X, and wherever you listen to your podcasts. We encourage you to check out our partner's website, thecollegehuddle.com, for many more college football podcasts and articles. As always, thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next time. Go Gophers.